everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Aika and my channel is dedicated to anyone interested in psychology and mental health. And today I'm back with a video on psychology careers. I'm going to be focusing on 6 jobs that I didn't know existed when I first graduated in psychology and wanted to work in clinical mental health. I read somewhere that psychology is one of the most popular subjects to study at university, and I read somewhere in a poll that 2/3 of people actually want to apply their psychology knowledge, just like I did when I first graduated, but are unable to, so they end up going elsewhere to other fields to work. So that's such a shame, and I just wanted anyone who picks this video up to see that, psychology is still an option in terms of a career path for you, and that there are much more options now than there were before, and the options are also quite exciting. So just to be clear, these jobs that I'm mentioning here are for people who are interested in a clinical route. More generic kind of jobs I will not be exploring in this video. This is specifically for people who are interested in applying their psychology degree in a clinical manner. So the obvious ones that I've already made YouTube videos about is Assistant Psychologist and PROPs, both of which I will not be exploring in this video because I've already explored it extensively in my other videos. And also these are actually quite competitive jobs to get nowadays. I guess obvious jobs that might not be obvious for most, but for a lot of people it will be, is support worker jobs, healthcare assistant jobs, and special needs learning assistant jobs. So these jobs are common and also quite popular, that if you just Google mental health jobs, more often than not these jobs do come up. So I'm just going to skip all that, but I'll just put them in the description box below. I will probably be accidentally using a lot of different acronyms throughout the videos, so just to make it easy for people who are just coming into the mental health field, I'm going to link all the acronyms that I will be using in the description box down below. So the first one is Children's Wellbeing Practitioner, so CWP. PWPs are very well known. However, children's wellbeing practitioners are less well known. So psychological wellbeing practitioners, we focus on adult work, whereas children's wellbeing practitioners focuses on children, young people, and their families. Exactly like PWP, they are focused on low intensity evidence-based treatments for things like low mood, anxiety, and also something that PWPs don't do, which is behavioral difficulties. You have 1 year of training. Whilst you're doing that, you're training in maybe schools or educational psychology services, or with families and with people with perhaps autism as well, so kind of some autism awareness work as well. So it's quite a varied role that's somewhat kind of related to schools, but also I've heard that it doesn't necessarily are based in schools. Just like PWP work, CWP work, so Children's Wellbeing Practitioner work, also requires a 2nd class degree minimum. The website doesn't actually ask for any kind of clinical experience, but I'd imagine some kind of work as a support worker or a volunteer at a school or a healthcare assistant working with someone with learning disabilities or children would definitely be beneficial. I'm going to link the UCL training course, also a postgraduate diploma, just like the psychological wellbeing practitioner post, in the description box below. A second really exciting development in psychology jobs in the UK is something called the Occupational mental health practitioner. So these are also quite similar to children's wellbeing practitioner roles, but they are purely focused on schools and colleges. Again, the idea is to increase access to psychological support in a, I guess, low intensity and rapid manner, and it's a very, very new role in that I think the first cohort started this year or last year. Just like the Children's Wellbeing Practitioner role and the Psychological Wellbeing Practitioner role, go through a 12-month training program before you become a qualified EMHP. Just found a really interesting screen grab that shows what EMHPs do and do not. I'm just going to put it here. Ta-da! Great. Again, you need a 2nd class bachelor's degree, but not necessarily in psychology, so any kind of academic degree, and no professional experience is required, it says at least. A third very exciting development is something called a clinical associate psychologist. Now, when I first saw this, I was quite confused, but after reading it, it again sounds like something that I would definitely have signed up to if it existed when I was first applying to psychology jobs. Apparently the initiative again started in around 2018 and 2019. This is again another year-long training course or apprenticeship that people go through. There's a standard national curriculum. You require a minimum 2-1 degree in psychology for the clinical associate psychologist role. So this, I think, feels a little bit more, not specialist, but a little bit more competitive. It's very similar to all the other ones that I talked about. They all have this 1-year national curriculum going on. This helps them standardize the quality of the psychological interventions being provided. Clinical associate psychologists, right now they are only based in London, Sheffield and Cornwall. From my understanding, CAPs are trained on a band 5 salary, which is really, really good, compared to PIP work, which is trained on a band 4 salary. You are basically trained to work with one specific clinical population, but CAPs are meant to be able to do clinical work in a wide variety of clinical populations. Once you qualify as a clinical associate psychologist, you're paid band 6, which is pretty good as jobs go nowadays in psychology. Definitely does sound like a really great alternative to becoming an assistant psychologist. I'm going to link a frequently asked questions PDF form that I found. The fourth exciting training course that you can get onto that I wish I knew about is called Trainee Mental Health Workers. So these people are paid at a band 3 level, and you basically go through a postgraduate diploma in mental health practice. And from what I can see, only Middlesex University provide this, but I am again not sure because I am only limited to Google. What trainee mental health workers do, initially they have a huge block of lectures and then they go on placement afterwards. The entry requirements are 2-2 or above, and it doesn't specify that you need a psychology degree, so I'm guessing this again is one of those ones that want to invite people who aren't necessarily in the psychology field to come into work in the mental health field. After asking someone on Instagram about her experience working as a trainee mental health worker, she said that you are assigned to one placement during the year, so you are allocated to a specific area of work, and there's basically a few specific ones. So the first one is R&R, which is rehabilitation and recovery. SMS is substance abuse service, SAMH, which is senior adult mental health, and then acute and community services. So basically throughout the year you are put in a placement in one of these services. The last two are a bit non-conventional, but I definitely see aspiring psychologists going into these roles as well, even though they are not necessarily designed for aspiring psychologists. I've seen so many people very outspoken about, doing these jobs with the intention to become a psychologist, so I just thought that I would mention it as well. So the first one is OT assistants. So these are occupational therapy assistants. And I didn't even know that these existed until I started working in an inpatient hospital and I saw OT assistant and I met her, and she then went on to get an AP or assistant psychologist job. And then another person came in as well. She also had a psychology background and then also worked in an OT assistant job, and then also is thinking about the clinical psychology doctorate. So it seems like a lot of psychology seems to trickle into OT work, which I don't know whether some people might find questionable, but if they're competent, they're competent. It seems like there's no set entry requirements around this. Maybe some relevant work experience. It would be an advantage if you worked in health and social care, obviously, either in paid or voluntary work. Search terms that you can use are OT technicians, activity coordinators, rehabilitation assistants. There's like a million different terms for this role. They work under occupational therapists. So occupational therapists offer practical support for people to overcome their problems in carrying out their day-to-day activities in their lives. OT technicians are paid on a band 3 level, I believe. Again, I'll link a informational website below. So final one is assistant practitioner. Assistant practitioners and assistant psychologists are completely different roles, but at the same time they overlap a lot because assistant practitioners who work in mental health work a lot like assistant psychologists. It took me a while to really research this properly. It took me talking to an assistant practitioner and looking at her job role. It seems like there are a lot of overlap. What is different is that actually assistant practitioner roles are seen as a kind of in-between support worker and nursing job. This can literally be anything outside of mental health as well. You can have ones that are specialists in mental health, and those jobs is the reason why they seem like assistant psychologist posts, simply because the kind of population is kind of similar. But it seems like the supervision structure is kind of different. Assistant practitioners aren't necessarily managed or supervised by a clinical psychologist or a psychologists in general. They be managed by the nursing team, so that's a huge distinction there. The lovely person that I talked to on Instagram, she seems to have been doing exactly what I would have been doing as an AP, so running DBT based groups, or doing one-to-ones, or doing kind of certain assessments or brief interventions. So it seems like it's a really good experience in terms of getting your foot in the door in the mental health field as well. I'm going to link a kind of description of what an assistant practitioner is down below. Quoting them, they said that there's no specific definition of what an assistant practitioner does. It really depends on the demands of the service. Actually, that's a huge issue because there's no standardization of the quality of assistant practitioners or actually what they do. So no one really knows what assistant practitioners do. It really does depend on what they actually need. The assistant practitioners basically have a little bit more responsibility than a support worker, but a little bit less responsibility than a nurse. We've come to the end of the video now, and I really hope that those who are graduating in psychology this year, or have graduated last year, or will graduate next year, not to waste your precious talent in psychology into other fields and come back to mental health and come back into clinical psychology or clinical mental health. Hopefully this video will show that there's much more jobs available out there for people who are already wanting to go on this route. There's much more jobs out there than just support worker, assistant psychologist, POP, and healthcare assistant. There's these 6 roles already, and this is just by researching and talking to really kind people on Instagram about their job roles. Already I found 6 really different and very interesting roles that you can work that might arguably be less competitive than AP or POP roles. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any other unique and unheard of job posts or training posts that I haven't mentioned in this video, please feel free to comment down below. I really want to know about it, and tell me what your experiences are if you have done any of these jobs before. I've met quite a few of you working these jobs on Instagram already, so thank you so much for those who have contributed to this video. Oh, and a quick note, just forgot to say, please subscribe to this channel if you are interested in more content in psychology and mental health. And if you want to follow my journey, follow me on Instagram at the Oxford Psych. So see you, bye.